Part 2. At the point of enlightenment, we will finally perceive that we, beings that have always existed just as God has, are identical with God. In Hindu terms, this is expressed by the formula Atman, the individual self, equals Brahman, the cosmic self. The yoga seers of the Upanishads declared, I am Brahman. I am the essence of entire universe. We start off with completely wrong ideas about our true nature because it would be absurd to argue that the evolution of consciousness would commence with our knowing everything, as Abrahamists say of their God. No, like everything else, our knowledge evolves from simple to complex, and it is only when it is sufficiently complex that we can finally understand reality. All that matters in Abrahamism is faith, which has no link with evolution. You either have faith or you don't. It's a switch that's on or off. There is no evolutionary process. It is because enlightenment is evolutionary that it in no way contradicts science and is fully consistent with Darwinian evolution. Abrahamism contradicts science and evolution. Enlightenment religions can easily accommodate agnosticism and even atheism. Many Western atheists are attracted to Buddhism because there is no contradiction between reason and enlightenment, between science and this type of religion. Fritjof Capra's famous book, The Tao of Physics, is all about drawing parallels between Eastern Enlightenment religions and both quantum physics and relativity theory. To those people who deny the existence of Satan, consider this. If the universe is evolving, if it is infinite and eternal and anything that can happen will happen, if anything not forbidden is compulsory, if the cosmos evolves dialectically by way of thesis, antithesis and synthesis, if evil is an apparent fact of the existence of higher consciousness, then there is nothing at all to prevent the evil aspect of existence reaching a dialectical culmination in a single consciousness, Satan. If he is not forbidden, he is compulsory, just as compulsory as God himself. Any argument that can be advanced regarding God can equally well be advanced regarding Satan. If you don't accept the existence of Satan, then logically you cannot accept the existence of God either. Evil is dialectically certain to exist as the antithesis of good. If there is no evil, then there is no good. One cannot exist without the other. No Satan, no God. It is as simple as that. Enlightenment religions are the religions of the true God. Abrahamism is the religion of Satan. He calls himself the creator of everything. He is cruel, vindictive, perverse, warlike, partisan, bullying, threatening, jealous, demanding worship and glorification. He is an egomaniac and tyrant. If that isn't satanic, then what is? Yet billions worship him as the true God. Why? Because he is a psychological genius who knows exactly what buttons to press, what story to sell. Enlightenment equals paganism. Abrahamism equals Satanism. The word pagan comes from the Latin paganus, meaning country dweller. Pagans are those who dwell in the natural world, the rational world, the evolving world. Abrahamists are anti-nature, anti-evolution, anti-science, irrational creationists. Enlightenment versus Abrahamism. If life has evolved on Earth, then it has evolved throughout the cosmos. There are places where it will be highly evolved and other places where it will be more highly evolved, and there will be a place where it has evolved to the maximum degree the cosmos is capable of, in the person of God. God is humanity writ large. He is cosmic man to our terrestrial man, or he is cosmic God to our terrestrial God. In the end, there will be no distinction. Atman equals Brahman. Enlightenment advocates science, knowledge, logic, reason, philosophy, mathematics, culture, literature, and art. Abrahamism rejects science, knowledge, logic, reason, philosophy, mathematics, and any culture, literature, or art that in any way offends their beliefs. Muslims do not depict Muhammad or Allah at all. Jews can't even write God with all of its letters. In the past, Protestant Christians were in the habit of smashing to pieces every instance of Catholic art they could lay their hands on, and are notorious for their plain, ugly, boring taste. Evil. Why should the universe be defined as intrinsically morally good? Why not intrinsically evil? In fact, the German philosopher Schopenhauer argued that existence was indeed inherently evil, and he provided a persuasive case. So, any simplistic and naive optimism that claims that there is something fundamentally good about evolving cosmos must be rejected. The focus of enlightenment is knowledge, truth, and embracing the essence of reality. Morality is a secondary consideration and is actually subsumed under reason. Evil is a greatly misunderstood concept. The dictionary will give a definition of something like morally bad or wrong, wicked, malevolent, that which is destructive, corruptive, or injurious. A world of complete free will could be envisaged where no evil acts ever take place. So, free will cannot be the source of evil. Moreover, Abrahamism teaches the idea of predestination, that a few human beings are the elect, the saved, and the rest are the damned. Free will is, of course, completely incompatible with predestination. Or, to state it more grimly, if God has decided that we are damned, then there is no act, no choice. We can freely perform that will make the slightest difference to our fate. An alternative approach of Abrahamist theologians is to describe evil as the absence of good. Good is absent from the animal world, but no one would ever describe sharks and lions as evil. And why did not God create them thus? So, who is responsible for all the killing? Abrahamism, quite simply, cannot explain what evil is and where it comes from. According to Eastern religions, evil does not exist per se. Rather, it is a label we attach to various unwise actions that result from our desires, ignorance, and delusions. But why should desire, ignorance, or delusion automatically result in evil? One could be full of desire and yet never commit a sin. One could be completely ignorant and yet do no evil. One should be subjected to the most tremendous delusions and do no harm. So the Eastern explanation does not make any sense either. Ancient Gnosticism described the material world as evil and as the domain and creation of the wicked demiurge. Evil in ancient Gnosticism thus belongs to a specific location, the material world, and ultimately derives from the creator of the evil material world, the demiurge. Hence, Gnosticism, unlike Abrahamism or Eastern religion, is dualistic. It denies that God created everything, thereby avoiding the problem of accounting for evil in a cosmos created exclusively by a perfect being. But why is the demiurge evil? And doesn't he too come from the divine source of all things? In fact, is he not part of God too? The real source of evil, according to philosophical Gnosticism, is something called individuation, which we might define as the process of making the one into the many, of turning a single unity into many individual things. If we follow the Eastern religions and say that the ultimate reality is a transcendent oneness, how did it come about that we do not experience this oneness in our everyday lives? How did the wheel of Maya, of illusion, get thrown over us and turn us into many separate creatures? As always, the cosmic equation R greater than or equal to 0 provides the explanation. This equation indicates that there are two linked realms of R equals 0, that is, the mental universe outside space and time, and R greater than 0, the physical universe inside space and time. which exist as separate but interacting domains with the continuum of r greater than equal to 0. R refers to the distance between 2 points, which can both be between an entity or each point can belong to a separate entity. And r greater than equal to 0 indicates that this distance can be reduced all the way down to 0. Philosophy r greater than 0 implies a domain of extension, that is matter, a physical world of individuated things in space and time, separated by real distances, while r equals 0 implies a domain of non-extension, that is mind, a mental world of interconnectivity outside physical space and time, where entities are not separated by any distance and nothing has any physical size. A black hole singularity and the Big Bang singularity are examples of situations in which the distances between all entities contained within them are reduced to 0. Nothing in these singularities has any extension, and therefore, according to Descartes' definition, they have entered the realm of mind. So the domain r equals 0 is the transcendent unity where all things are linked. This is non-dimensional reality, outside space and time. The r greater than 0 domain is the dimensional reality, inside space and time. It is space and time, dimensionality itself, that breaks the one into many, that creates individual things and locates them in precise places in space and time. Individuation is the consequence of dimensionality, and dimensionality is what takes place when the oneness, that is God, alienates itself in nature. It does so, as Hegel showed so brilliantly in his philosophy of dialectical evolution, in order to attain absolute knowledge and to return to itself on a much higher dialectical level. Indeed, at the ultimate level, the omega point. It alienates itself in order to undergo the process of completing itself. Oneness, pure, eternal oneness, is a sterile environment. In order for evolution to reach a summit, in order for teleology to be fully satisfied, alienation is a necessity. Dimensionality, Maya, must be imposed on the dimensionless. The one must experience the many, but the many must ultimately return to the one, and the one will then be vastly superior to what it was before, because of all that it has learned through being many, through having experienced reality through the dimensional prism. Capital R equals 0 expands into small r greater than 0, and finally small r greater than 0 returns to small r equals to 0, to the complete cosmic cycle. The Big Bang came from nothing, that is r equals 0, and creates the physical universe, that is r greater than 0. The Big Crunch is the opposite process, returning r greater than 0 to nothing, r equals to 0. The universe does not end in stasis, it never stops. There are infinite ages because existence can never come to an end. It is best described by the first law of thermodynamics, that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. But energy is the arc, the fundamental substance of existence. Hence, existence itself cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Existence, that is energy, cannot ever cease to be. New existence, that is energy, cannot ever be created, thus disproving the existence of the Creator God who contradicts the first law by making things out of nothing. And if we take the step that materialistic scientists reject of defining the arc as not just energy but minded energy, that is psychoenergy, then we can recast the first law in a breathtaking way. Mind can neither be created nor be destroyed, only transformed. In other words, this is the quasi-scientific equation for reincarnation. Our mind is eternal. It can never die. When a physical body fails us, we simply find a new one. and we keep transforming our minds according to a progressive dialectic until we have ascended to the level of consciousness of God Himself. The dialectic of the one and the many. The one many synthesis is precisely the objective of the meritocratic republic. The state, as an embodiment of the general will, should, first and foremost, serve the best interest of all of its citizens, and it does so by seeking to maximize individual satisfaction, self fulfillment, and self actualization. If God is defined as the personalization of the R equals 0 domain, as the personalization of the transcendent oneness, then we can say that the demiurge is the personalization of R greater than 0, of the principle of absolute individuation, everything separate from everything else. This is the ancient Gnostic wisdom converted into scientific language. The Hindu concept of Maya is very close to that of demiurge. Maya creates the illusion of many souls, Atmans, while God is the true single cosmic soul, Brahman. The task of Atman is to realize the truth and become one with the Brahman. All Atmans have exactly the same task. The true God, Abraxas, does not abandon us to our fate. He ensures that the presence of the one within the many to counteract satanic individuation. The personalization of true God's intervention in our world is none other than the angel of light, Lucifer, the divine morning star, the light bearer. Here is the highest wisdom. Thesis, that is Lucifer, equals good. Antithesis, that is Satan, equals evil. Synthesis, that is Abraxas, equals beyond good and evil. Evil is dialectically compulsory. Lucifer thinks it should be abolished entirely, hence fails to understand its dialectical necessity. Likewise, Satan wants to abolish the one, that is the union of all beings as equals, so that he can stand as the eternal ruler of the many. Inequality is what he seeks, with himself as the first amongst the unequals. Only Abraxas truly comprehends the dialectic. So the final dialectic progression is this. Thesis, that is the one, equals the good, equals the light, equals the Lucifer. Antithesis, the many, equals the evil, equals the darkness, equals the Satan. Synthesis, the one many, equals beyond good and evil, equals light and darkness, equals the dialectical omega point, equals Abraxas. The completion of cosmic evolution, the apex of existence, the maximum actualization of the original cosmic potential, the attainment of absolute freedom and knowledge. The true God is not defined as morally perfect. Perfect goodness is not a property of the true God. That would be to limit him and reveal that he was ignorant of evil, hence incomplete and lacking full knowledge of existence. Evil defines good. Evil gives good meaning. Evil, in a sense, perfects good. The two must dialectically coexist until they are finally transcended by the ultimate synthesis in Abraxas. Abraxas does no evil, though that is not because he is incapable of it, but because it serves no rational purpose when you are the true God. To whom and why would he do evil? He is the one many. He understands the needs of the one and the many. To harm one of the many would be to harm the one itself, hence to harm that aspect of himself. Hence, he would never do such a thing. He refrains from evil through knowledge and reason, not through any inherent absence of evil in his character. Meritocracy and the true God have, in truth, nothing at all to do with morality. Although they may indeed appear highly moral, they are concerned with identifying the maximum rational good for the one and the many. The objective is not to destroy yin or yang, good or evil, but to balance them in the manner that makes them work together in the optimal way. Abrahamists, with their obsession with sin and their fanatical desire to eradicate it, have made themselves psychological nutcases capable of acts such as the Crusades, the Inquisition, and 9/11. In the name of cleansing the world of sin, they have committed every sin imaginable. That is what inevitably happens when you try to destroy yin or yang. The many is the yin to the one's yang. They are dialectical partners. You cannot destroy one or the other. The task is to achieve the balance of the two, not the total negation of one of them. Evil is indissolubly linked to the concept of individuation and the many. Good, on the other hand, is bound forever to the concept of the one. The one would never do evil to itself. Evil is something that is done to others. Hence, evil is a consequence of the existence of others. That is, it is a function of the many. We only come to understand good through the evil we do to the others, and that we see others perpetrating against others. But we do evil above all because we tune into the cosmic source of evil, Satan, and his message of selfishness, vanity, self love, status, fuck others, look after no one, make others worship you, power, money, greed, hate, violence, deceit. These are all the ways by which one of the many can place himself above the many and emulate Satan. To think you deserve more than others is, ultimately, to think you are God over them. But our dialectical task is to overthrow them, create a meritocratic republic, and finally be free of evil. Consider the logic of God being infinitely good and infinitely knowing. If he does not know evil, then he is not all knowing. God can be either all knowing or all good. He cannot be both. Illumination focuses on knowledge, not morality. Abraxas is all knowing, hence, he fully understands evil. We must be able to look at ourselves and confront our shadow. To deny that we have a shadow is self delusion. In Gnosticism, Lucifer actually has an ambivalent role. He is revered for being the light bearer, yet he, like Satan, must be overcome. He is the hero who opposes Satan, yet in him is the seed of religious fanaticism, the desire for purity that can give rise to the master races and chosen people and pure blood, and all the rest of it. Lucifer's shadow is Satan, so to speak, and Lucifer rejects it rather than dealing with it. Abraxas, like us, has a shadow, as above, so below. But he, and only he, is the complete master of the shadow contents of his psyche, because he understands his shadow perfectly and has integrated it. Abraxas is whole. Everyone needs to emulate Abraxas, the whole, the truth. It is traditional to refer to the kingdom of God, but in fact, there is no such kingdom. There is the Republic of Heaven, based not on power hierarchy, but on a round table. Abraxas is the first amongst equals. Abraxas is not worshipped by the Illuminati for the simple reason that no one would ever worship an equal. And why would you want to worship anyone anyway? Abraxas is our guide, our light, our exemplar, our mentor, our guardian. We esteem him, we do not worship him. We oppose any religion that asserts the need for worship. There is no such need, ever. The focus should always be on becoming God and not on worshipping God. The latter approach immediately shows that you have rejected your inner divinity and your higher self. Summary of evil. A. Taoism. Evil is the consequence of imbalance between yin and yang. Taoism places good and evil on a par. Balance produces good, imbalance produces evil. B. Buddhism. Evil is caused by ignorance, avidya, and desire. Good is intrinsically superior to evil. C. Hinduism. Evil is caused by being trapped in an illusion, that is the web of Maya. Note that Hindu illusion and Buddhist ignorance are essentially the same concept, both meaning that they prevent the truth of things from being discerned. Good is intrinsically superior to evil. Gnosticism asserts that the material world is evil, reflecting its evil creator, the demiurge. Evil is as real and significant as good, and in no way subordinate. In Gnostic thinking, the Eastern terms of Maya, Avidya, would be equated to the demiurge. The material world is the product of the alienation of the One. That is a process that is inexorably brought about by the unfolding of the dialectic. The One thus fragments into the many. The existence of the many leads inevitably to the master slave dialectic, whereby individuals ruthlessly compete for power. So, Illuminism provides a precise account of the dialectical inevitability of evil. Evil is what emerges as soon as you define those around you as others that must be fought to prevent them from being a threat to you. What do the Jews call themselves? The chosen people, meaning that everyone else is other. The Nazi master race regarded all non Aryans as others. Muslim regards all infidels as others. Christians think they are the elect and non Christians are damned, the others. That is why we say that Abrahamists are devil worshippers. They follow the master slave dialectic and the dialectic of the other to the letter. Hence, they are evil. Abraxas stands at the omega point of all the different dialectics that are in play. Lucifer stands at the end of the dialectic of good, Satan at the end of the dialectic of evil, and Abraxas at the end of the dialectic of the struggle between good and evil. Evil is a real thing, a real presence, a real consciousness, an active force in our world. Evil, Part 2. Evil is based on the cult of the individual. It is about individuals who are vain, narcissistic, self preoccupied, and contemptuous of others. Evil lies within everyone who does nothing but think of me, me, me. But what of Isaac's rights? Consider Abraham. When God ordered him to kill his son, did Abraham pause to ask, but what of Isaac's rights? Did Abraham give any consideration at all to his son? He did not. To never think of others is the essence of evil. When a serial killer is in the process of torturing to death his latest victim, he has no thought for anything beyond his personal pleasure. Another person's actual life is of no value in comparison with his desires. That is what evil is all about. Only you matter. No one else does. Such an individual completely rejects the idea of community, of others having any rights. He rejects the one, that is, the all in one, the community, in favor of the one individual, that is himself. Gore Vidal famously wrote, "It is not enough to succeed, others must fail." In a proper community, everyone should wish everyone else the best and hope that everyone can maximize their individual potential and thus make their optimal contribution to the good of the community. The most meritorious will do better than others and be more prosperous. But surely no one can complain about those who work hardest and demonstrate the most merit being the best rewarded. The privileged buy the best education for their children. Their kids get access to the best teachers, schools, and colleges. These are thus denied to those who do not enjoy privilege. Thus, the less privileged children are immediately placed at an enormous disadvantage compared with the privileged. They can never catch up, and it is explicitly intended that they should not. The disadvantaged have been engineered for failure. The family is an evil unit on which to base society. It is far too selfish. A properly functioning society must be based on community, not on family. A community is not defined by blood, hence avoids that pernicious self-absorption, disregard for others, and ruthless nepotism that characterizes family. People are corrupted by the ways in which they are raised. So it is crucial to raise them differently. And that means by attacking the ultimate sacred cow, the hegemony of the family. The power of the family suits one particular group in particular, the old world order, the global network of powerful dynastic families that rules the world. Family is their essence, just as it is for mafia. Communities would spell the end for them. So they will do everything to prevent the rise of communitarianism. The old world order and their fellow travelers will protect the family to the death because it is the entire basis of their power. So whose side are you on? Why aren't we in full scale revolt? Maybe because we are pathetic and feeble, looking for an easy, soft life just like the last men. Meritocracy has no connection with communism. There is no demand for absolute equality. Meritocracy is a differential philosophy. That is, it accepts that all people are different and it resists any attempt to enforce an artificial equality. What it insists on, though, is that the differences in wealth and power between different people should never be allowed to become as ridiculously magnified as they are in the capitalist democracies. Any excess in wealth or power automatically sabotage meritocracy and create privilege. Hence, the meritocratic republic has to rigorously define and control the acceptable limits of wealth and power. How can that be controversial? Who opposes us? Only those whose power, wealth, and privilege will be stripped from them. Families like the Rothschilds and the Bush. How many times do you read about the latest billionaires coming from Harvard? How many times do you read of the latest billionaires coming from the Bronx? Ayn Rand's repellent novel, Atlas Shrugged, the Bible of the Tea Party, shows the alternative to the society based on the Golden Rule. She argued that helping others is evil and that happiness resides only in selfishness. She wanted the business elite to rule America and to treat the ordinary people with contempt and to help themselves to as much money as they could possibly get. She certainly got her wish. Corporate America has canonized Rand. Long after her death, this monster remains one of the America's most popular writers. Even more incredibly, many Christians love her even though she was an atheist, which reveals that they love mammon infinitely more than religion. Contrast her with Hypatia, a grandmaster of the Illuminati and a genuinely great and good woman. The psychological model of evil. A useful way of thinking about good and evil is through Freud's tripartite theory of the psyche. The id component is amoral and selfish, and supremely preoccupied with itself. It regards everyone else as having no function but to serve it. The archetypal id being is a newborn baby. It is driven by its instincts, desires, and the obsessive pursuit of the pleasure principle. Adults who pursue an id path through life are infantile and B evil, and A and B usually go together. America are babies in adult forms and have created an infantilized culture. Shallow, narcissistic, pleasure seeking, greedy, selfish, emotionally dead, intellectually sterile, obsessed with instant gratification. Opposed to the id is the superego. That is the seat of the conscience and morality. It seeks to suppress desire and instinct because these are unpredictable and potentially dangerous. It rejects short term gratification in favor of hard work and discipline. It always thinks of what impact an action will have on others. The golden rule is the essence of the superego. It's about consideration for others. Lucifer is ruled by his superego. The ego is the mediator between the id and the superego, the negotiator that obeys the reality principle. Its aim is to satisfy both the id and the superego by ensuring that the id's desires are met in realistic ways that do not transgress the rules of society. The ego keeps it real. The ego is akin to Abraxas. The best society is based on the ego. It has to be given outlets. Mainstream religion has tried to exterminate the id as evil or as a source of illusion, ignorance, and desire. And yet, at the same time, Abrahamism has eagerly embraced capitalism, the creed of greed, desire, selfishness, materialism, illusion, and ignorance. The id cannot be suppressed. It always finds a way religiously, politically, socially, or economically to justify itself and to satisfy itself. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, and indulgence in sensual experiences have to be given a new space rather than being expressed through capitalism and the profit principle. Capitalists make enormous sums of money by exploiting people's id desires and by manipulating them through the control of their fantasy space. Id and money have to be separated because nothing is more toxic and corrosive, more guaranteed to drag humanity downwards than the combination of the two. They will be buried in the team colors with the team flag draped over the coffin and the team's anthem playing in the background. Drugs, nightclubs, prostitution, porn, whole empires have been built on satisfying id cravings. The prohibition experiment in America resulted in the rise of gangsters because they, unlike the government, understood that people would do anything for the sake of their id pursuit of pleasure. What is the internet if not a medium for transferring vast amounts of id porn around the world? Most technological advances on the internet come historically from online porn companies. Pleasure seeking, bawling babies, dedicated to instant gratification and feeding their ever changing whims and desires can never become gods. In fact, the market is nothing but a reflection of id psychology, driven by short term pleasure seeking, that is, the pursuit of fast cash, instant gratification, short term profit over long term investment, presents, bonuses, golden handshakes, golden handcuffs, golden parachutes, golden goodbyes, massive expenses account, etc. It is driven upwards by greed and downwards by fear. It is based on impulse, basic instincts and desire, not reason or logic. Boom and bust is inevitable. It is irrational. If you want to raise the quality of the human race, last thing you would ever do is keep pandering to the id. Id-driven societies, capitalist societies, are disastrous because they destroy the superego and render people infantile. Superego-driven societies, theocracies, communism, are disastrous because they destroy the id and mold people into pleasure-hating fanatics. The 9/11 murder squad preferred killing over fucking. The only healthy type of society is the ego-driven one, based on the reality principle. The West is the slave of the id. Islam is the slave of the superego. In the West, women and men too, increasingly, are sex objects in a highly sexualized culture. In Islam, women are just objects, invisible in their burqas. There is zero sexualization in Islamic nations. Muslims are sex-hating fanatics, and the morbid id gap created by anti-sex is filled instead by the death instinct, the worship of martyrdom, after which you get 72 virgins. In Russia, beautiful girls go to sex classes to learn the most potent sex techniques. Their objective is to snare a rich husband, and they need every advantage they can get. After all, the competition is intense. There are many beautiful girls and very rich few men. In terms of the cosmic psyche, the id equals Satan, that is, obeying the pleasure principle, total selfishness, narcissism, hedonism, and desire. The superego equals Lucifer, obeying the morality principle, altruism, self control, and cooperation with others. And the ego equals Abraxas, obeying the reality principle, cooperating with others but allowing the id its freedom when the circumstances are right. In Jungian terms, Satan is the shadow, Lucifer is the persona, the mask that someone puts on the society. And Abraxas is the self, the God image, the lost symbol. Dan Brown in The Lost Symbol suggests that the big secret at the heart of secret societies is apotheosis. Apotheosis, from the Greek apotheonon, means to deify or to make divine. That is, it is all about becoming God. So, yes, apotheosis plays the central role in secret societies. But it is not the answer to the big secret. It is no more of a secret than the Hindu teaching that Atman equals Brahman. Many of those who joined the Templars came from the Cathar families of France. The idea that Masons would ever have revered the Christian Bible is too ridiculous for words. All Knights Templars had to explicitly renounce the Jesus Christ of Christianity, to trample on the cross, and to spit on it to show their contempt for it. And they had other ceremonies where they equally demonstrated their rejection of the Torah and the Quran. When the Cathars and Templars described themselves as Christian and swore their devotion to Christ, they did so entirely genuinely, which was why it took the Catholic Church so long to realize the nature of the threat posed by the Templars. The Templars, in truth, regarded Christ as Lucifer, the angel of light and son of the true God. To the Templars, the Christian definition of Jesus was an obscenity. The original Freemasons, as the inheritance of the Templar banner and ethos, performed many of the same ceremonies as the Templars, including spitting and trampling on the cross and renouncing Jesus. Any modern Freemason who fails to do so is no Mason at all, but someone who is entirely ignorant about authentic Freemasonry. All of life is about choices, about having the guts to commit to one position or another. There is never anything noble or inspiring about agnostics, the skeptics and cynics, the sneerers and the weak willed, those who just shrug their shoulders and refuse to take any stance in life. There are two religious views of what happens to the human soul: reincarnation and resurrection. Reincarnation says that souls were not created, that souls have always existed just as God, and that all souls will eventually become one with God. The body is the means of trapping the soul in the material world of dimensionality, alienation, illusion, and ignorance. The soul is not eternally linked to any particular body and can keep changing body. In modern Freemasonry, the highest degrees are manufactured by the old world order and are all about gaining and sustaining earthly power and wealth, accompanied by some fake ancient knowledge and pseudo mysterious ceremonies and rituals. There can be no question that Dan Brown's novel was a propaganda exercise on behalf of the plastic Freemasons. Apotheosis. Countless victims have been stoned to death by Jews, burned at the stake by Christians, and beheaded by Muslims for advocating human apotheosis. All of the original Freemasons repudiated Abrahamism. America was founded expressly on the separation of religion and state to ensure that it would not succumb to rule of Abrahamism. Twofold religion. Religion has two aspects: God and the soul. If the soul is as old as existence, its fate is entirely within its own control. It is all about the evolution of the soul, and when it reaches the point of enlightenment, it becomes one with God. No such thing is possible without a created soul. With this view of the soul, the objective of the soul is to understand the true nature of things and thence to realize its divine nature. The Tao of the Old World Order. The German expressionist film Metropolis, Fritz Lang, 1927, contains some of the most iconic images of human oppression ever committed to film. Abraham the psychopath. God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son, but the devil challenged him not to. One story says that Abraham pelted the devil with stones 3 separate times, chasing him away. meritocracy, political faction, meritocracy. Thomas Paine famously stated that government is a necessary evil. And so the movement has come to the conclusion that the people should strive to create the least evil government possible. Anarchy. Anarchy would be a viable system if people were naturally communitarian, cooperative, unselfish, altruistic, free of corruption, vices, and criminality. Anarchy would be a logical answer in a world of angels, not in this world. In a world without legitimate control, there would be chaos. The person wielding the biggest gun is the king. In an anarchy, how would food, water, shelter, aid, and protection be organized? People would be forced into factions for support and survival. The entire population would follow a gang mentality. The bartering systems would return, and eventually those with the most power, that is, those with the most followers, most resources, most guns, would assume power. In other words, anarchy would not long remain free of government. It would quickly degenerate into a tyranny. Communism. Communism is based on a noble idea but is inherently flawed. This flaw is exactly what its greatest contribution is: equality for all. Picture this situation: a businessman, factory worker, doctor, lawyer, garbage man, and carpenter are all paid the same salary. The doctor, who works long shifts and is under tremendous stress, realizes at some point that he might as well just stop working so hard and he would be paid the same. If he worked even longer shifts, he would be paid the same as the carpenter working the usual hours. The businessman realizes that it does not matter how much of the product he sells. The government owned business will still pay him as much as the businessman that did not sell anything. So why sell? Why should the doctor work longer hours? Why should the carpenter spend his life outside toiling in the sun when he could be a lawyer and sit in a cool office and in a comfortable chair for the same salary? Communism, despite its noble principles of human equality, cooperation, and community, is a fragile system that's almost impossible to bring into practical, efficient reality. Democracy. Jefferson had this to say about democracy: a democracy is nothing more than mob rule, where 51% of the people may take away the rights of the 49. Interestingly, democracy is not mentioned once in the American Constitution. The United States was actually designed to be a constitutional republic. Note, a republic, not a democracy. Not a democracy. Bound by law, that is the Constitution. Additionally, the democratic elements of such nations as representative rather than direct, that is, government is by elected politicians rather than the direct democratic vote of the people on every issue. In the age of internet, the technology now exists for direct democracy. But unsurprisingly, no so-called democratic politician has ever suggested implementing true people power. Many of the greatest thinkers of antiquity, such as Plato and Aristotle, were strenuously opposed to democracy. It has never been favored by intellectuals who typically regard it as a dumbed down, lowest common denominator ideology for hysterical, ill-educated mobs. Monarchy. They are also supported by weak, submissive people who enjoy being led and dominated, being at the whim of a master in front of whom they must grovel, a master often less capable of governing well than even the pathetic people bowing before him. What if that person is actually insane, such as the Caligula, Nero, or Henry VIII? Meritocracy. Just as justice should be done and be seen to be done, so should government. All of the financial dealings of the members of government, Congress, and lobbyists should be matter of public record. The meritocratic republic. The meritocratic republic is required to have a social contract with every citizen based on dialectical constitution. That is, one that moves with the times and seeks to get better and better according to a methodical process of repeated iterations of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. The dialectical constitution is protected by a Supreme Court of 10 individuals. But they are not lawyers. They are people of the highest intellectual merit. the finest exponents of reason, logic, and creativity. Two mathematicians, two scientists, two psychologists, two philosophers, and two artists. They are appointed by the people. Any change to the constitution must be approved by majority of the 10. A five-fight deadlock results in no change. No child should be forced, for the sake of an inflexible curriculum, to do something that they instinctively resist. There is no point in force feeding advanced mathematics, for example, to a child with little aptitude for the subject. You will only make them miserable, make them feel like failures, and dent their confidence. Soldiers of the Confederacy gave their lives in the cause of depriving other human beings of their freedom. Libertarians will, likewise, give their lives in the cause of depriving children of the right to think for themselves. The final war will be the religious war. The Jews, Christians, and Muslims will fight to death for the right to brainwash their children, as they themselves were brainwashed when they were children. Humanity will never be free until the brainwashing of children is stopped forever. Eastern religions. The Eastern religions come close to being forms of pantheism. That is, God is in everything, God is everywhere, and nature worship rather than religious religions of personal salvation. Eastern religions exhibit a certain indifference to the suffering of others, since all suffering is karmically merited. In Hinduism and Buddhism, much of what goes wrong in our lives is blamed on previous lives. These religions are associated with an excess of passivity. The aim of Eastern religions is, through contemplation, prayer, meditation, and relatively simplistic philosophy, but not through science and mathematics, to see beyond illusions and climb above ignorance to the hidden unity of all things. What has been the consequence of this view? The East has traditionally lagged significantly behind the West in science in the past few centuries. Only when Easterners have adopted Western thinking, they have prospered scientifically. Hinduism and Buddhism assert that apparent separation is illusion. Therefore, reductionism is illusion, mechanism is illusion, parts are an illusion. The logic steers them away from analysis towards synthesis. But the best approach involves both analysis and synthesis. The moral logic of Hinduism and Buddhism is based on the strange doctrine of karma. On a simplistic basis, it seems reasonable that in a system of reincarnation, you should be held accountable over a number of lifetimes for your good deeds and bad. But who is the accountant of sin? Who decides what is good and bad? If it is not a person, how does karma know? How does it judge? How does it keep track of trillions of living creatures? What is the mechanism for karma's interaction with the specific person? How does it impart a karmic judgment on someone? How does it transmit a bad life to someone who was immoral in the previous life? How does it interact with someone's DNA or their environment? Karma, regardless of what it advocates and apologists claim, makes no scientific or philosophical sense. If you decided that karma wasn't involved in these cases, then how would you distinguish when karma is involved from when it is not? If you conclude that karma is always present, then you would need some explanation for how this weird force called karma implants cancer cells in some people and rigs the lottery for others. What is the scientific mechanism? Easterners have avoided the absurd Abrahamic God, but they have never been able to build their religion on a mathematical and scientific platform. Their concept of karma is bizarre. Their idea that the cosmos operates on a profound level of illusions is equally bizarre. Why would it? Why would God, nature, seek to actively prevent people from seeing the truth? Western science. Science is incapable of explaining how life originates, since there is no obvious link between matter, inanimate, dead, inert stuff, and the attribute to life. It is incapable of accounting for mind and consciousness since there is no obvious link between unthinking, inert, non conscious matter and the attributes of mindfulness and consciousness. If we decomposed a dead human being into all of the different types of atoms of which his body was composed, we would see little piles of stuff, and it would be incomprehensible how the animated combination of these piles once thought, loved, laughed, and philosophized. Every human being is composed of three things: food, drink, and a code, DNA, for organizing the food and drink into something alive and conscious. Your mother ate and drank, and after she was impregnated by your father. Some of this food and drink grew into her womb in an organized way, according to a pattern specified by DNA, and emerged as you. How did DNA, molecular strands, accomplish this? Where in DNA is the code that eventually translates into a human being appreciating a good joke? Next time you sink your teeth into a hot dog, just think that some of those atoms may soon afterwards be contributing, somehow, to your ability to fall in love. What the fuck? A human being. Science avoids anything that implies teleology or explicit design. Science cannot say where the laws of physics come from or why they exist at all. Science cannot say why anything should exist in the first place. It asserts that something comes from nothing, but cannot explain how and why. Science cannot explain why the cosmos seems to be so firmly rooted into mathematics. To avoid any implication that the cosmos is designed, implying a designer, science suggests the following: the laws of physics just are. Science is a set of dogmas. Ideas that seem to contradict the scientific paradigm are instantly dismissed. The hurdle to overcome to get a new idea accepted in science is simply enormous. Anything unorthodox, conventional, radically different that supports any notion of a cosmic designer is rejected. No one outside the scientific priesthood would ever be taken seriously. Science is no longer capable of escaping from its rigid orthodoxy. Its modus operandi stamps out all maverick thinking. It has become a huge sausage machine squeezing out conventional thinkers, and it is incapable of seriously examining the highly dubious validity of the assumptions upon which it is constructed. Page 108. Part 2. At the point of enlightenment, we will